Hey guys, what's up? So this is my fifth back to basics hybrid workout. Really getting into the swing of things by this point. Once again, I'm using the Vince Gironda pull-up. I think it's a fantastic variation, especially if you have the rings, because you can really just pull as hard as you possibly can while maintaining pretty strict form. I will say I'm not sure why my legs were wiggling so much. I think it was just me kind of getting used to the instability of the rings. And then I'm jumping right into some clean and jerks. My leg muscles were definitely tight in this workout. Just been ramping up some of the biking, and the heat makes it a little bit harder to warm up without getting fatigued. It's a difficult balance for me. I'm pretty large, so I don't have really great heat tolerance. So when you're warming up and it's already warm outside, you don't want to actually get so hot that you're accumulating a ton of fatigue, but you also need to make sure that your joints are moving well before you're doing anything that's going to risk injury. This is just the kettlebell suitcase carry. It's the easiest of the asymmetric loaded kettlebell carries. I really like loaded carries where you do some sort of unilateral variant because you get a ton of anti-rotation challenge and a lot of core stability training all in one go. You also get a good amount of upper back and grip training, which is pretty commonplace with the kettlebells, but it is just good to get nonetheless. And here I am back to these pull-ups once again. I'm getting a little bit less leg movement. I think I was just getting used to the exercise. You can see I'm really pulling the rings apart very aggressively. Back to the clean and jerks, a little bit better. I think the adductors are getting tight. Whenever I get close to a deload, which this is about a few workouts before I started a deload, I always get tight in certain areas. The adductors are one of them. On one hand, it's annoying, but on the other hand, it's good because it's a very clear indication that my body needs to take a rest. And so I always check for those sort of indications. My adductors usually get tight, my shoulders get tight. Certain areas that aren't necessarily as resilient to fatigue as other parts of my body will tend to get fatigued first, and that's just kind of the precursor and a good time for me to dial it down and take a week off. Unfortunately, I didn't listen to my body that well, so even though I started the deload, I got a bit overzealous with monkey bar training and I strained my pecs. I don't have any video footage of that. It was just something I was trying out for later. So I essentially swung from one monkey bar to a monkey bar 3 or 4 away. So basically like a dynamic, jump, I guess. I don't know how to describe it. But throwing my body forward, caught myself. So I was able to do that, but it was in the dark and I didn't land super properly. So the shock of that has kind of made my biceps and chest achy. It's nothing major, but it was definitely could have been avoided if I had been less overzealous and not done it right as I started a deload. Certainly as I'm ramping up this aggressive hybrid training, I'm just going to be deloading more frequently. I think I'll probably do the standard 3 weeks on, 1 week off. That's easy to follow with a month format, so it's just the last week of the month you are deloading, or the first week of the month. It doesn't really matter which. It's just whichever is more convenient for you. And here I am getting into some fulcrum push-ups, another Vince Gironda variant. You can see there's a really deep stretch on the chest. And I'm going forward a little bit with the knee bend, so it's almost becoming similar to a Gironda dip, but not quite as intense. Obviously, I was going a little overzealous considering I had a pec strain, so I'm guessing my pec minors are getting pretty beaten up from this, and I need to be less aggressive going into the future. Then here I am doing some high pulls. Those felt okay. My shoulders were a little weird, so it wasn't quite even. Again, on reflection, a lot of signs that I was clearly in need of a deload. I was getting some joint pain, I was getting some fatigue. I was moving a little bit weirdly, and certain areas of my body were definitely telling me that they were worn out and broken down. Here we go. You can still see those tight adductors. I'm really not getting as deep into the pocket as I want to be, and that's really throwing off my momentum. And I think one of my shoulders is a little tight. I definitely need to do some more myofascial release work. And I'm going to be taking an extended deload where I'm already a week in and I still feel like I need a little bit more. So I think I'll probably do a week and a half, maybe even 2 weeks, where I'll just be doing exercise for the areas that are not sore.
There we go.
Yeah, the adductors are really beat up. I like doing high pulls as an accessory to snatch work. I'm not very good at them, especially compared to cleans and gunslingers, which have come much more naturally for me. But it's always good to train the positions that you're not necessarily that good at. And I do think they're excellent for training the mid-back, and you're just focusing on the pull of the snatch. This is just me with buff arms for 2 seconds. So I just had to include that there for a nice juicy thumbnail. I definitely have been seeing the benefits of the ring training mixed with the kettlebells. The kettlebells build up my triceps a lot, but the ring training specifically, my arms have been developing in a pretty interesting way, where I can just see the brachialis, the brachioradialis, all of the stabilizers and kind of muscles that are deep into the arm are really developing, and so I'm getting a bit more of that, I guess, calisthenics or gymnast type arm development, which is very interesting. It's just a different look from when I've been doing bodybuilding type stuff. Certainly, strength wise, there's a huge demand for arm strength as you get higher into the calisthenics training, like almost a disproportionate amount. You need really strong brachialis, really strong elbows. So it just accumulates very quickly. And you just get to a certain point where you have to have very developed arms. And if you've not been doing the accessory work to get there, you're really going to hate your life. And here I am just doing some rear delt flies. I like to have the rings cross over, make it more similar to a TRX type thing. This is good to do on a bar where you're afraid that the rings are going to stretch apart and kind of screw up the stimulus. And so you can do this, so you just have the rings cross over, and so they pull towards each other instead of away from each other. It's best done with exercises where you're going from a very narrow hand position to a very wide hand position, especially for high reps where it's going to be hard to maintain that tension pulling backwards on the rings to keep it from sliding. Another option I like to do is sometimes I'll bring fat grips. I'll put those on the bar, and those are basically just to not lock in the rings per se, but keep them within a pretty small range of sliding. You want some instability, but you don't really want them sliding arbitrarily. That's not the point of the exercise, and it can screw up how you're exerting tension on the straps of the rings. So yeah, just a little tidbit I've found over the years. This was me just trying to do rings pullovers. I hated them. I love weighted pullovers, but you just can't really get the right tension curve here. It's basically just a stretch on the triceps. So I wouldn't recommend it. It almost feels like an isometric. There's just not enough stretch, not enough demand on the lats. So not that worthwhile. I was really trying to figure out how I could make it work. Here I'm just doing some more of the rings prep work. So this is just L-sits to dits. You can tell my front delts are tight, which I'm suspecting probably led to the pec strain. And then here I'm just doing some V-sit with my hands on the outside, so not the normal support position for that, but it is a good mana precursor. And then going into cradles, I'm trying to get lower into the rings cradle, just, you do a little bit more spine extension. I'm really loving all the rings work that I've been doing lately, though. I just feel that there's really nothing that I do that has had such a strong return. Like, the ratio of effort to results and adaptation is just unparalleled when it comes to rings training. It will truly make you better at almost every other aspect of calisthenics with a lot less time commitment relative to everything else. So rather than working on every single skill, I'm just trying to find exercises that are the most efficient possible means to get there.
Hey everyone. So I'm trying a new thing where I just do the rucking at the end of my weight training workout. I'm just doing a lighter ruck now. I decided to move down from 40 pounds to 32, and it's dramatically more comfortable on my body. So I'm going to stick at this weight for a while and then slowly, work my way up. So, but anyways, I think I'm just going to do this now, where I do the, slow cardio at the end after most of the conditioning. However, I do have some like burpees and I've got burpees and like lunges and stuff to do left. So I think what I'm going to do is just walk over with the weight vest on, keep it on, do the remainder of my conditioning work that I can have a weight vest on with, and then do the rest of my condensed ruck. So it's not going to be as long of a ruck as I normally do, but I think it's best if I just start trying to put it all, the whole point of the workout is just that I'm hitting a little bit of everything. So if I'm already kind of, tiring my legs out and stuff like that, I may as well just do it at the end, because that way I really am doing literally my entire workout in one session, because I'm already going to the same spot where I'm rucking anyway, so I think it makes a lot of sense. Anyways, review of the workout so far. Everything's pretty good. I did have pullovers in my program, which I didn't film. And they're kind of the bodybuilding style ones where you go on against a bench and you lower your hips down. And you do a bent arm pullover, so you get a big stretch at the bottom. And then you raise your hips up as you're pulling. So that's one thing where I'm going to have to do it at home, as well as the power wheel. I could hypothetically bring the power wheel out here, but it's going to get dirty, so I'd rather just do that at home. So those are the only things that I think are unable for me to bring. You know, I can just bring the kettlebells, bring the weight vest, and, you know, a lot of it is just calisthenics and ring work, so that's pretty light and portable. So yeah, I think I'm coming up on the spot where I like to do the little field where I like to do the remainder of the conditioning work. So I want to try using the weight vest so I actually get a bit of a strength training effect. And also I think it's going to let me save time, because I'm just going to fatigue myself faster. So I think one of the benefits of the weight vest is, even if you're somebody who doesn't mind doing like the higher rep work, sometimes it's more time efficient just to add a little bit of resistance. So I guess we'll see how this goes. I'm trying the weighted primal flow as well as the weighted burpees, and I've never done that before, so we'll see how it goes in a second. Okay, cool. All right, so it's too heavy for me to do advanced burpees. I'm just gonna work my way up to that shit slowly. Oh God. Yeah. Damn, this is hard. I'm being humbled by the weight vest for sure. Yeah. My arms are totally gassed. I'm eating my humble pie today. Whoops. Oh, damn. I can't believe how completely gassed my arms and upper body are. Wow. That's like a dramatic increase in effort. It's like, it legitimately feels like 70 to 80% harder. Okay, wow. That was incredibly surprising. So, man, I am completely shot after like 5 minutes of that. So, I guess that's a good sign. I'm strong enough to do the exercises safely. I'm not worried about that. But man, my arms were like completely jello by the time I was even 2 sets in. I think that's a great thing though. So I have underestimated the power of weighted vests. Not even really doing that much of a ruck at this point. I'm just walking back because I'm so gassed. I think whatever cardio I was wanting to get, I managed to get. So I'm keeping this as in the roster for further strength and conditioning work. Okay, takeaways after that workout. The weight vest was definitely the highlight, where I cannot believe how much of a difference that made. Just doing a little bit of primal flow, even just those bear crawls, it's like my triceps completely got fatigued. So I don't mind though. I actually get excited when this is weird, but I get excited when something is a little bit too hard for me to handle, because that is like an immediate goal that is set for me, where, okay, like this is something where, you know, I objectively could only do like, I think 2 reps of burpees, and I was just trying to do psycho style, but I was literally just not strong enough to get quite into that position. But that means that's a new challenge for me, and suddenly burpees, which had become kind of boring because they got pretty easy, now that I'm adding, you know, 32 pounds, it's a pretty dramatic increase in the difficulty. I think I should have, it should have been a little obvious where the weight vests were going to come in handy the most in strength and conditioning, strength endurance type training, because, you know, that's magnifying it over tons and tons of reps. But I was pretty humbled. So it's also good because I feel like after doing stuff like the, you know, duck walks and the penetration lunges for a month, doing that Matt Fury style training, those things became very easy as well. So similar to burpees, where them unweighted is not really anything of note. This is like, whoops. Similar to burpees, where doing them unweighted is no longer like challenging to me in any really substantive way. Other than, you know, I have to do tons of reps just to get any sort of stimulus from that. It feels like the leg training was also hit, so that was surprising as well, where the duck walks and the lunges, you know, using my lower body, which is obviously a lot stronger, even those were quite challenging. Like, I could barely do the duck walks at all. Just find that little bit of extra load, it just kind of like, I think it just fatigues my legs faster. So the stretch reflex isn't as strong, where when I'm doing something completely unweighted, they can just bounce back really aggressively, and it's pretty hard to get past that stretch reflex. So I actually feel like from doing those duck walks and those lunges, my ankles feel stretched out, which is really interesting. So the one downside of the weight vest is obviously you get more compression, but I just do dead hangs at the end of the workout anyways, similar to what I'm doing with the rucking. I didn't really have a chance to do that much rucking. I just didn't have time, and I was too tired anyways. But I think eventually this is a good way to program in the rucking where, I do my workouts pretty quickly in like 45 minutes. And then I can do the rucking for like 30 to 45 minutes once I get fit enough with the current weight vest. I always like doing cardio after strength training. I think I'm just way more warmed up, so it's a lot easier to get in quality work afterwards. If I do it the other way, it doesn't work as well. If I do, serious cardio and then I do strength training, I just find that my reserves of energy have been depleted. But because generally cardio is lower intensity and it's not going to demand as much, it's a little lower demand. It's not going to quite demand as much, in terms of like high intensity effort. It doesn't really matter that I'm a little gassed from the strength training and I can't give out like a maximal intensity effort because I don't need to for any sort of, strength endurance work. It's just about maintaining it. Plus, I'm a big believer in pre-fatigue training. That's generally kind of a bodybuilding concept where you're just fatiguing a set of muscles before you work them. But I find that it's really helpful for things like cardio and stuff like that. So exercises where you wouldn't really get too much stimulus out of them, if you're completely fresh, become challenging again. So I think having my legs a bit tired and then going for the short ruck afterwards is probably the best case scenario. I also want to not just consolidate my training times, but consolidate the days where I'm, putting my body under load, just so I think I can have less days where I'm, putting my tissues under compression. And that's more just I'm a heavy person, and putting my body under compression, I have to do a lot of, dead hangs and inverted hangs and inversion table stuff. Like I have to do a lot to just decompress those tissues because I just have more body mass than the average person. And so it would make it a little bit easier if it was just all in the same day. If I'm already doing that to myself, I might as well just put it all in one day and then give my joints and connective tissue a little bit more time to rest. Besides that, the ring strength, I want to start doing a little bit of like ring flow type stuff where I'm just kind of doing the exercises back to back to back. I've kind of got that going. I just need to be stronger on it. So rings dips have always been a big weak point of mine. Rings pressing work is always like, I'm definitely somebody who's built for pulling type movements. And so I find that, I've generally in calisthenics had a much easier time advancing in pulling type movements. But something like the rings dips is just, pure pressing strength. There's really no excuse, and you can't really get away from any sort of weak links with the rings, which is the best reason to train them. But currently what I'm doing is I'm eventually trying to get to doing a shoulder stand, so like a tuck, a tuck like L-sit kind of thing to a shoulder stand. And so I need to get good at that transition where I'm just changing positions pretty dramatically. Like I'm going from an L-sit to a dip, which is pretty, that's like a large range of motion for my shoulders to be going through in a lot of different positions that I'm moving through. And so I'm just trying to master that transition a little bit more. Besides that, I don't really have much to say. I mean, it was a good workout. This was one of the easier, more endurance-focused workouts. When I have it in my program that I'm doing an easier day, I like to compensate by reducing rest times. So you get a little bit more on that conditioning side of things in exchange for a little bit of the strength. Now, you don't want to do it to the point where you're doing such intense conditioning work that it's a hard day. So that's a bit of a fine line to do. So I generally try to keep the reps a little lower on light days, and then I can, cut down the rest time. So I'm still not like completely crushing myself with volume, but I am getting that conditioning effect by having those really short rest times.